What are the top 10 Nen abilities in Hunter x Hunter when it comes to strength and versatility? Let's talk about it. All right, so first of all, shout out to Carson for asking me to do this. Thank you so much for the support, man. But I wanted to give you guys a quick glimpse of where my head was at in coming up with this list so that you knew where I was coming from. So, since Carson asked for strength and versatility, that's obviously like a very specific niche, and there are going to be some really powerful abilities that don't make this list. And so that's why an ability needs to be both strong and versatile. So, don't yell at me for not including your favorite ability. Also, I'm not going to put these in any particular order. This is just the 10 that I consider to be both the most strong and versatile in the series. But as always, let me know y'all's thoughts down below. Oh, and also, I'm going to consider a person's entire set of abilities as one entry on this list instead of doing like individual specific Hatsus. And I'm also not going to be giving an in-depth explanation of each of these abilities. I'll give a quick overview, but the video would be far too long if we gave a full-on explanation. And plus, I have videos explaining some of these abilities already. All right, let's kick this list off right with one of the OGs, and that is Grandpa Zeno Zoldyck with all of his Dragon Hatsus. He is an emitter and clearly extremely powerful, but he's got the versatility as well. We know he can do pinpointed attacks with his Dragon Breath Hatsu. He can do a million missiles to carpet bomb an entire area, and also he can use the dragon for transportation. And I'm sure he's got a million other uses for that thing as well. Next, let's just go ahead and knock out both of the old goats and get Isaac Netero out of the way, because of course he's going to be a part of this list with his 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva Hatsu. And this also speaks for itself. I mean, everything on this list is probably going to speak for itself, but he has 100 different attacks. I guess maybe even 101, considering type 0 is also an attack that he can do with this thing. And it's one of the most powerful things we've ever seen in the verse. And you know what? Let's just slide on over to who Netero used that ability against and talk about the Ant King Meruem next with his ability aura synthesis. He could just consume somebody and not only gain their aura, but also their ability. And the potential there is obviously absurd, right? He could theoretically have a limitless well of abilities to draw from. So talk about versatile, and obviously his power speaks for itself. Next, speaking of having access to multiple abilities, I'm going to have to go with First Prince Benjamin's ability, Benjamin's Baton, which, if you recall, grants him access to his loyal followers' abilities after they pass away. And you're going to see a trend with a lot of my choices here that basically anything that grants you access to a multiple set of abilities is going to be crazy powerful and versatile. So of course, on that note, Chrollo is also going to be on my list with his ability Skill Hunter, which allows him to steal the abilities of others. And then to round out this train, next up on my list is Kurapika, who has Steal Chain as merely one of his abilities, which allows him to steal an ability and either use it himself or give it to somebody else. But in addition to that, he has several other abilities that are all exceedingly powerful, not the least of which is his Emperor Time, which makes him a specialist and 100% efficient in all of the Nen classifications. So Kurapika is probably one of the most powerful and versatile characters in the entire manga. Next up, I've got one of Meruem's royal guards, and that is Pouf. And his ability is absolutely bonkers. The things he can do are ridiculous, right? First and foremost, he can give people Nen abilities by wrapping them in his cocoons and basically transforming them at a cellular level. On top of that, he can split himself into innumerable pieces to split up and accomplish a million different things. He can basically get a read on people's emotions with his like, he is the king of versatility in my opinion. Now, in terms of strength in like a combat sense, we don't necessarily see anything that packs a lot of attack power necessarily, but I certainly think at least with his capability of giving other people Nen, we could consider that very powerful. And next up on this list, we have another one in that same vein, because Morena's contagion can also grant other people Nen abilities. And so the potential there is just absolutely absurd, right? We know that Morena can infect 22 other people that will then get an ability, but then also have the potential to then go on to infect 22 people themselves, and so on and so forth. And we can quickly cascade into hundreds or thousands or even millions of Nen abilities, all stemming from hers. Next up, I've got Illumi Zoldyck, the master of manipulation, and quite frankly, it's absurd the amount of things he can do with his Nen. First of all, he can use these needles on himself to completely transform the way he looks. And I'm not talking like a disguise. We are talking a complete and utter transformation that is basically indistinguishable from the original. And that's like the weakest thing he's capable of, because he can also use his needles on others to manipulate and control them in a multitude of ways. He can give you like a psychological rule you need to follow, that like we saw with Killua. He can control corpses with them and basically make them his puppets, and then he can also control living people and make them his puppets. Like, he's one of the scariest nin users we've seen. And then finally, last but not least, I've got Nanika and Alluka's wish granting ability. And I know I said these were in no particular order, but this one is far and away the best. When it comes to strength and versatility, you can't get much better than the literal granting of wishes. And we have not seen any upper limit on what this is capable of in the show. That's not to say that, there isn't a theoretical limit, but we've pushed that boundary pretty far and haven't reached it yet. And again, in terms of versatility, you can literally ask for anything you want. So it doesn't get much better than this. And yes, it is a nin ability, even though it is technically of the Dark Continent Calamity Eye. We do know that it's a nin ability because of the way Togashi classifies Nanika's nin. She is considered one of the ultimate users of nin. So whatever is powering those wishes is technically a nin ability. So yeah, when it comes to powerful and versatile abilities, that is going to be my list. But special honorable mention to Saradnik, Hulkenberg, Nove, and Moral. Those were 4 that I was really close to including here, but they just couldn't quite get over the bar because they weren't good enough in both categories for me. But let me know y'all's thoughts down below, what your top 10 would be, especially if it's one I didn't include in here, because I'm sure there's probably a couple I forgot. Pito was another one. Yuppie, the Royal Guards obviously are extremely powerful. But yeah, let me know y'all's thoughts. And again, another shout out to Carson for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much, man. And thank you guys for watching.